Here is 1.3, which is actually a continuation from the previous practice problem. So if you want to watch the rest of those questions, it is in the previous video, practice problem 2. Now, as I mentioned in the previous video, the reason why I chose to do this question separately is because it is not in the typical algebra format. This question is more of an application. It requires you to think a little outside the box. It also tests you on volume and area, which are sections that you've covered in previous years. Now here's what we have. 1.3 says a rectangular box has dimensions A, B, and C. The area of the surfaces are 2 square root 10, 3 square root 2, and 6 square root 5 as shown in the diagram below. So all of this is given to us on the figure, and it says calculate without using a calculator the volume of the rectangular box. Now, emphasis on without using a calculator, meaning that we cannot give them decimal answers. Remember, the minute you give them a decimal answer, they will mark it wrong because you are failing to follow instructions. So what you can do is, since you are working with square roots, and if you're not used to that, or if you've forgotten from last year, it's okay. You can use your calculator to simplify, but do not write down decimal answers. Okay, coming back to the question. We need to calculate the volume. And let us remind ourselves how we do this. So we know that volume, a general formula for volume is equal to area of the base times the height. Area of the base times the height. So, in order for us to get the volume of this shape, using the basic letters, I'm not working with the areas right now. I'm just working with the letters and the lengths that were given to us. So, here we see that the length, so the longer side is A, the breadth is B, and the height here is given as C. Now, following this formula, if we were to calculate the volume of this particular shape, this is a rectangular prism. Area of the base would be A times B. Multiply that by the height, which is C. Essentially, the volume of this shape is ABC. So we need to see how we can get this. If we are able to work with the areas that were given, and we are able to get ABC, that would equal to the volume. Now, where the part of thinking outside of the box comes in is that you are given areas. You need to think about this for a bit and see how can you use the areas that are given in order for you to get A, B, C. Now, one way of doing this is you can actually multiply all of the areas together. But I'm going to write down the areas in terms of the letters. So the first thing I want to do is focus on the front face of the shape. So this is what I'm focusing on. And I want you to notice that for this front face of the shape, the area is A times C. So length times breadth, or length times height in this case, if you want to take it that way. But looking at it, it's a rectangle. We know the area of a rectangle is a length times breadth. So the long side multiplied by the short side. I'm going to write that as A times C. So I can say AC. Okay. Now just to write down what I'm given for now. AC is given as square root 5. The next shape I want to focus on, which is also a rectangle, but it's the face on the side, so the right hand side here. That area is going to be given as B times C, and that is 3 square root 2. So BC is 3 square root 2. Now let's focus on the top. Actually, I wanted to focus on the bottom, but we cannot see the bottom face visible here. So we'll settle for the top because remember, this is a prism. The top and the bottom are exactly the same. So working with the top, we have 2 square root 10, but the letters that represent the top will be A times B. Remember, this length is A, that is B. So we've got AB is equal to 2 square root 10. Now the next thing I'm going to do is multiply all of these together. So I'm going to have AC times BC times AB, and I'm going to multiply what they're equal to. Now why am I doing this? I'm trying to create a way for us to get ABC, because remember, this is what we're trying to get to. We are trying to calculate the volume, where the volume is A times B times C. So if I simplify the left-hand side here, and I actually multiply letters where the bases are the same, you guys notice you've got AC times BC times AB. We can have A times A, which gives you A squared. B times B gives you B squared, and C times C gives you C squared. Because we've got certain lengths that are being multiplied by itself, so obviously they will be squared. Now simplifying the right-hand side, if I multiply all of the coefficients, all of the values in front of the square roots, I have 6 times 3, which is 18, times 2, which is 36. And if I multiply all of the values underneath the square root, 5 times 2 is 10, 10 times 10 is 100. Remember, you guys, there is a rule that you learned in grade 11. When you did surds and exponents in grade 11, you learned that if you have 2 different values underneath square roots, you can write down one big square root, and if they multiply together, you can write down one big square root and multiply them underneath that square root. Essentially, this is what I've applied to get this 100 underneath the square root. I multiplied 5 times 2 times 10, and I've got square root 100. Now I'm just going to simplify the left hand side because I noticed that I've got A, B, C, and all of them are squared. I'm going to write this as ABC all squared. This is just a little neater, it's a little easier to work with. Then I want to show you what happens to the right hand side, so how we can simplify 36 square root 100. Firstly, the 36 and the square root 100 are multiplied with each other, but the square root will act on the 100, and we know that the square root of 100 is 10. So essentially what we have here is 36 times 10, which is 360. So we can replace the right hand side of this equation with 360. Now the next step would be for you to square root both sides, since you want to get rid of the square. So we square root both sides. On the left hand side, the square root and the square cancel each other out. We're left with ABC. And on the right hand side, square root of 360 can be simplified, and you should get 6 root 10. Now what happens from here? If you refer back to your diagram, you realize with everything that we did, the volume from the start, what we showed here was that the volume needed to be ABC, because we know that volume is area of the base. Since this is a rectangle, it was A times B multiplied by the height, and the height was represented by C. So initially we said, if we can work with all the areas that are given, and we can simplify it so that we have ABC, which represents area of the base times the height, we know that is the volume. So essentially, this ABC value that we have is your volume. Remember, when it comes to volume, your units are always cubed. So we are not given a specific unit to work with. Let's just check. No, we are not. So we can just use the word units. So So I'm going to say 6 square root 10 units cubed. So that is our final answer.